He had signed that packet every Tuesday for 6 years without reading a single name on it. Routine, mechanical, the kind of thing a man does when his empire is large enough that the details blur into noise. Daniel Hargrove, CEO of Nexus Capital Group, Billionaire, Forbes cover, 31st floor. He signed things. That was Tuesday mornings. Black coffee, untouched. Chicago spread below him like something he'd already conquered. Sandra Chu slid the facility's staffing packet across his desk at 7:14. He signed the bottom. She collected it. The names meant nothing, until one did. His pen stopped mid-stroke. Not slowly, it just stopped, like something in his hand refused the next motion before his brain caught up. He looked down at the page. Custodial Department. New hires pending authorization. Third name from the bottom. Lawson, Maya R. 7 letters. A last name he hadn't heard spoken aloud in years, attached to a first name he didn't recognize. But the last name alone was enough to drain every thought from the room. Sandra appeared in the doorway. She said something. He didn't hear it. "Mr. Hargrove." She stepped closer. "The packet, sir?" He pressed one finger flat against the page. "This applicant, Lawson, where is she right now?" "She's in the lobby, filling out onboarding paperwork for the overnight custodial position. She was already cleared by—" "Bring her up." "Sir, she's a—" "Bring her up." He didn't explain. He didn't look up. Just sat there staring at a name on a staffing sheet, like it was the last page of a letter he'd spent 20 years trying to find. Subscribe right now and hit that bell, because what Daniel Hargrove saw in those 7 letters is something nobody in that building saw coming. 30 floors below, a woman holding a mop handle looked up as the lobby phone rang. She had absolutely no idea her name had just changed everything. But this story didn't begin in that lobby. It started 6 weeks earlier, at 11:47 p.m., at a kitchen table in Pilsen, on the south side of Chicago, where the only light in a 2-bedroom apartment was the pale glow of a laptop screen. Maya Lawson had just been rejected for the 47th time. Not fired, not passed over, rejected. 47 applications across 14 months, marketing roles, analyst positions, entry-level consulting work she was overqualified for. The answer always came back the same: an automated email, a form letter, sometimes nothing at all. This one didn't even get her name right. Her son Marcus, 8 years old, was asleep in the next room. She could hear him breathing through the thin wall. She didn't read it twice. Here is what those emails never knew. Maya graduated from DePaul University in 2016 with an MBA, finishing in the top 12% of her class. She spent 3 years at Callaway Group as a junior analyst, fast-tracked for senior consideration before her 32nd birthday. She was the kind of woman who walked into rooms and people immediately adjusted their posture. Then 2019 came. Her father, Robert Lawson, 61, Detroit, floor supervisor at Meridian Freight, was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. No siblings. Her mother had been gone since Maya was 11. She was it. She left her job, packed Marcus into the car, and drove north. She sat beside her father through 28 months of treatments and setbacks. In March of 2022, he exhaled once, slowly, in a hospital bed at Detroit Receiving, and didn't exhale again. She held his hand until the room went quiet. She came back to Chicago with $3,200, $41,000 in medical debt, a son who needed new shoes, and a 3-year gap on her resume that every hiring manager treated like a criminal record. She explained it in every interview. Caregiver, family illness, father passed. The sympathy was always real. The callbacks never were. The janitor application at Nexus Capital wasn't defeat. Marcus had an ear infection, and her insurance had lapsed 2 months ago. She needed the benefits. She filled it out like she filled out everything, completely, honestly, without complaint. She showed up the next morning with her documents in a folder, and her father's watch on her left wrist. She had no idea, upstairs, her last name had already stopped everything. Maya had just finished signing the last onboarding page when the lobby phone rang. The security desk attendant picked it up, listened for 3 seconds, and then looked at Maya with an expression she had never once received at a front desk. Not curiosity, not suspicion, something closer to surprise, like the man on the other end of the line had said something that didn't compute. "Ms. Lawson?" He set the receiver down carefully. "They're asking for you on 31. She looked at him. "I'm sorry?" 31st floor, executive suite. He cleared his throat. "Someone wants to see you." Maya didn't move for a moment. She looked down at the folder in her lap, her documentation, her references, the onboarding forms she'd just completed in blue ink. Everything in order, everything correct. She couldn't think of a single reason why the executive floor of a building she hadn't set foot in before this morning would know her name. She followed the escort to the elevator, anyway. The 31st floor hit her the moment the doors opened. Polished stone floors. Floor-to-ceiling glass overlooking the Chicago skyline. The kind of silence that money buys and noise can't penetrate. It smelled like cedar and cold air and something expensive she couldn't name. Maya had been in rooms like this before, not as a visitor, but as someone who belonged. She recognized the architecture of power. She had simply stopped expecting to stand inside it. Sandra Chu was waiting with a smile that was really just a held expression. Mr. Hargrove would like a brief word. She didn't explain further. She turned and walked, clearly expecting Maya to follow. Maya followed, but her eyes moved the whole way down the hall, reading the names on office doors, the framed revenue charts on the walls, the junior analysts visible through glass partitions tapping at their screens. She filed everything quietly, the way she always had. Daniel was standing near the window when she entered. He turned and looked at her, not the way people looked at someone they were assessing, but the way people look at someone they've been trying to place. His eyes went to the folder in her hand, then to the watch on her left wrist. He stayed on it for half a second longer than made sense. "Please sit down," he said. She sat. He didn't, not right away. "Your name is Maya Lawson." It wasn't a question. "Your father, Robert Lawson. Was he from Detroit?" Every muscle in her body went still. How did this man know her father's name? Maya answered carefully. "Yes, he passed 2 years ago." Daniel sat down then, slowly, like a man lowering himself into something he'd been carrying standing up for a very long time. His hands came together on the desk. He looked at her the way people look at the end of a search they never expected to finish. "I knew your father," he said quietly. The room didn't change. The city kept moving 31 floors below. Sandra Chu stood somewhere behind Maya, near the door. None of it registered, because those 4 words had just rearranged everything. Maya kept her voice level. "I think you have the wrong person." She said it without flinching, the way her father had taught her. When something doesn't make sense, don't panic, just wait for the next piece. My father worked a warehouse floor in Detroit his entire life. He drove a 2004 Chevy pickup. He ate the same turkey sandwich every day for 30 years. Daniel nodded once. "Robert Lawson, Meridian Freight, Detroit." He paused. Winter of 2003. Her hands tightened in her lap. He told it straight, the way a man tells a story he has rehearsed in his head 1,000 times without ever expecting to say out loud. He was 17 years old. His mother had just been evicted from their apartment on Mack Avenue for the 3rd time. She had chosen a man over her son, and this time Daniel had decided to choose himself. He left with a backpack, $11, and no plan. He slept in the Detroit bus station for 4 nights. Cold floors, fluorescent lights that never turned off. The particular silence of a public space at 3 in the morning, when the only people left are the ones with nowhere else to go. On the fifth morning, a man in a Meridian freight uniform sat down across from him on a bench, looked at him directly, didn't look away, said, "Son, when's the last time you ate?" That man was Robert Lawson. He didn't call anyone, didn't hand him a pamphlet. He walked Daniel across the street to a diner on Gratiot Avenue and bought him eggs and toast and coffee and let him finish every bite before he said another word. Then he said, "I've got a floor position opening Monday, 6 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon. I'll teach you the rest." Daniel worked at Meridian Freight for 11 months. Robert taught him inventory management, logistics routing, how to read a vendor contract, how to negotiate a rate without blinking. He lent Daniel $200 when he wanted to take a night class at community college. He wrote a character reference letter when Daniel applied for a business scholarship at Wayne State. He never asked for the $200 back. He never asked for anything at all. Daniel left Detroit in 2005 with a scholarship, a business plan, and Robert Lawson's handshake still in his palm. When Nexus Capital turned its first million in 2011, he tried to find him. His team spent 3 months on it. Meridian Freight had closed. The trail went cold. He never stopped looking. He had a standing search order on the name Robert Lawson, Detroit, from 2011 until the year Robert died, and nobody ever connected the pieces in time. He looked at Maya across the desk, and his voice dropped to something unguarded and quiet. "I built everything I have on what your father showed me in 11 months. I've donated $40 million in the last decade. I funded 4 inner-city job training programs." He stopped. "I named the first one after him. I just never got to tell him." Maya didn't answer for a long time. The city moved below them. When Maya finally spoke, her voice was completely steady, because she was Robert Lawson's daughter, and Robert Lawson never fell apart in front of anyone. "He talked about a boy once," she said, "last week of his life, when the morphine was low enough that he could still form full sentences. He said he always wondered if the boy ever made it." She paused. "He never said your name." Daniel closed his eyes for 1 second. Just one. "I should have found him sooner. You couldn't have known. I should have tried harder." And there it was. 2 people on opposite sides of the same desk, in a glass tower 31 floors above Chicago, carrying the exact same brief from 2 completely different directions. The man who was saved and the daughter of the man who saved him. Both of them too late, and both of them right on time. Sandra Chu had not moved from the doorway. Her folder was closed against her chest. For the first time in 6 years, she had nothing to write down. Daniel picked up his phone, made 1 call, said 4 words, "Clear my afternoon calendar." Then he set it down and looked at Maya like a man who had just understood, fully and finally, exactly what he owed and exactly what form the repayment needed to take. But what he was about to offer would split that company straight down the middle. The offer Daniel made wasn't wrapped in sentiment. He laid it out like a business case, because that was the only form it would survive in that building. Nexus Capital's Logistics Intelligence Division had been bleeding efficiency for 18 months. Their 3-person research and vendor analysis team had produced 2 missed contract renewals and 1 $4.2 million routing error in 2023 alone. He needed a senior analyst who could read between lines, build systems from scratch, and manage complexity without a manual. Maya had the MBA. She had the Callaway Group track record. And she had something the other candidates didn't. 3 years managing the single most demanding operational challenge that exists, keeping a dying parent alive on a collapsing budget. Coordinating between insurance companies, medical teams, pharmaceutical suppliers, and home care providers simultaneously without breaking. "That's not a gap on your resume," Daniel told her. "That's the most intensive operational training I've ever heard described." He offered her a senior logistics analyst position. Full salary, benefits, effective day 1. Maya said she needed 24 hours to think about it. He respected that. He walked her to the elevator himself, The doors closed. He turned around. Sandra Chu was already in his office. She didn't raise her voice. Sandra never raised her voice. That was precisely what made her dangerous. She placed 3 concerns on his desk, like surgical instruments laid out before a procedure. 1. Maya had no recent corporate track record. 2. The internal team would read this as personal favoritism dressed up as opportunity. 3. If the hire underperformed, the liability exposure landed on Daniel directly, not on HR, not on the division, on him. She wasn't wrong. That was the part that made it complicated. Daniel let her finish every word. Then he said, "Write up the offer letter." Sandra didn't move. "Sir, I'd strongly recommend a probationary structure that—" "Write up the letter." The next morning, Maya returned with her answer. But Daniel wasn't at the security desk. Sandra Chu was. She handed Maya a revised onboarding packet with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The position listed was no longer senior analyst. It had been quietly reclassified as junior research coordinator. The salary was $31,000 lower. The benefit start date had been pushed back 90 days. Sandra looked at her steadily. "Mr. Hargrove asked me to handle the details." Maya looked down at the paper. She read every line. She read it twice. Then she looked up at Sandra Chu with an expression that was not anger, not hurt, not surprise, just clarity. The kind of clarity that comes from spending 3 years fighting systems far more powerful than one woman with a revised job title. She folded the paper in half, tucked it under her arm, and said, "Can you tell me which floor Mr. Hargrove is on? I've been there once, but I want to be sure I have the right elevator." Sandra's jaw tightened. She already knew exactly what was coming. Maya took the elevator to 31 herself. Daniel's assistant stepped forward the moment the doors opened, hand raised slightly, the practiced gesture of someone whose entire job was managing access. Maya held up the folded paper without breaking stride. 2 minutes. That's all. The assistant reached for the desk phone. Daniel came out of a meeting before she finished dialing. He saw Maya's face. He saw the paper. He understood in the time it takes to exhale exactly what had happened. "Come in," he said. He didn't sit. He stood at his desk and read the revised document in silence. Every line. His jaw didn't move. His expression didn't shift. But when he set the paper down, he set it down the way a man sets something down when he has decided it will never be picked up again. He lifted the desk phone and called Sandra directly. Put it on speaker. Asked her to explain the revision. Sandra's voice came through clean and composed, walking through liability frameworks and non-standard hire protocols like she was reading from a manual she had written herself. Daniel let her finish every word. Then he said, "Restore the original offer. Full salary. Benefits from day one. I'll send written authorization in 10 minutes." He hung up. He turned to Maya. "I'm sorry. That should not have happened in this building." She looked at him carefully, the way her father used to look at a contract before signing. "Is this going to be a pattern?" "No." "Then I'll take the position." She paused. "But I need one thing clear. I get evaluated on results. Not on where I came from, not on who you knew. Results only." He extended his hand. She shook it. Her eyes dropped for just 1 second to her father's watch on her left wrist. She didn't say anything about it. She didn't need to. Neither of them knew that Sandra Chu had already left the building and was making a phone call to a board member that started with 4 quiet words. "We have a problem." 3 months later, Maya Lawson stood at the front of the quarterly leadership summit on the 29th floor and presented the revised logistics framework for Nexus Capital's entire Midwest vendor network. The restructured system eliminated a recurring $2.8 million annual inefficiency that 3 analysts before her had missed for 4 consecutive quarters. When she finished, the room was silent for 2 full seconds. Then it stood. Sandra Chu was in the back row. She applauded slowly, but she applauded. Daniel said nothing after the meeting. He didn't need to. He walked Maya down the hall to Conference Room B, where a new plaque had been mounted on the wall outside the door. Brushed steel, black lettering, clean and permanent. The Robert Lawson Room, in honor of the man who proved that seeing someone costs you nothing and changes everything. Maya stood in front of it for a long time. Her son Marcus was with her that afternoon. She had brought him in for a building tour, something she promised him the week she accepted the job. He looked up at the plaque and read it carefully, the way 8-year-olds read things they want to understand completely. "Who's Robert Lawson, Ma?" She put her hand on his shoulder. "Your grandfather." He read it one more time. "He must have been important." "He was," she said. "He just never knew how much." She didn't come to this building to be saved. She came to survive. The distance between those two things is the whole story. Your worth doesn't expire during the hard years. It waits. And sometimes all it needs is one person to read your name on a page and finally stop moving. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe, hit the bell, and drop in the comments, have you ever been overlooked? Tell me below.